I once watched a woman stand at the edge of a bridge in the early morning fog, her hands gripping the cold metal railing, and I knew without her saying a single word that she was lost in the darkest maze of her own mind. She didn't see me approaching, didn't hear my footsteps. She was somewhere else entirely, trapped in a conversation with invisible demons who spoke to her every waking moment, telling her she wasn't enough, would never be enough, could never escape the prison of her circumstances. And here's what terrifies me, what keeps me awake at night, what compels me to share this message with you right now. That woman is not unique. She is not an isolated case of suffering. She is you. She is me. She is every single person who has ever believed the lies whispered by the untrained, undisciplined, chaotic subconscious mind. You see, right now, at this very moment, there is a conversation happening inside you. It never stops. It runs while you sleep, while you eat, while you scroll mindlessly through your phone at 3 a.m, wondering why your life feels like it's moving through thick mud. This conversation, this internal dialogue, is not neutral. It is not harmless background noise. It is the single most powerful creative force in your entire existence, and most people are completely, tragically unaware that it's even happening. They think their thoughts are just thoughts, random neural firings, meaningless chatter, but I'm here to tell you something that will fundamentally change how you see reality itself. Your subconscious mind is listening to every single word of that conversation, and it believes every syllable as absolute, undeniable truth. It doesn't judge. It doesn't question. It doesn't say, well, that seems a bit dramatic. It simply accepts and creates. And what it creates becomes your life, your circumstances, your health, your relationships, your bank account, your future. Everything you see around you right now, every condition of your life, is a perfect reflection of the conversation you've been having with yourself, often without even knowing it. So let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. What conversation are you having right now? Not the one you speak out loud, the one that runs silently, endlessly, beneath every moment of your waking life. The one that whispers when you look in the mirror, when you check your bank balance, when you think about your dreams, when you see someone else succeeding. Is it a conversation of possibility or limitation, of worthiness or inadequacy, of faith or fear? Because here's what most people don't realize. Your subconscious mind is listening to that conversation every single second. It's recording every word, every feeling, every mental image you create, and it doesn't filter. It doesn't say, oh, they don't really mean that. It accepts it all as instruction, as a blueprint for what to create in your physical reality. You see, your subconscious is incredibly literal. If you say, I never have enough money, it hears that as a command. It will work tirelessly to make sure you never have enough money, because that's what you told it to create. If you say, I always get sick this time of year, your subconscious will mobilize every resource to fulfill that expectation. If you say, good things never happen to me, then good things won't happen to you, not because the universe is against you, but because you've programmed your own mind to reject them, to overlook them, or to sabotage them before they can fully manifest. I've seen this play out thousands of times. A man comes to me and says, Dr. Murphy, I've been trying to find love for years, but I always end up alone. And when we dig deeper, we discover that buried in his subconscious is a belief planted in childhood. I'm not lovable. People always leave. That belief is running the show. It's choosing which people he's attracted to, how he behaves in relationships when he pulls away, and why things fall apart. His conscious desire for love is fighting against a subconscious program for abandonment. And the subconscious always wins. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating. The subconscious doesn't just control your reactions to life. It actually shapes what happens to you. It draws experiences toward you like a magnet. You've probably seen this in action without realizing it. A woman believes, men always disappoint me, and somehow, despite meeting dozens of different men, she keeps finding the ones who prove her right. A man believes money is hard to come by, and no matter how hard he works, financial struggle follows him like a shadow. Is the universe conspiring against them? No. Their subconscious is conspiring to validate itself. The subconscious mind operates on one fundamental principle: consistency. It must prove itself correct. It's like a lawyer who's already decided the verdict and now selectively presents evidence to support that conclusion. It filters your perception, influences your choices, and even affects how others respond to you. When you believe I'm not good enough, Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't try to convince you otherwise. Instead, it says, okay, let me show you more evidence of that. It makes you notice every criticism while ignoring every compliment. It pushes you toward situations where you'll feel inadequate. It literally creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. And here's the really uncomfortable truth. Your subconscious doesn't care if its beliefs make you happy or miserable. It only cares about being consistent. It would rather be right than make you successful. It would rather validate an old painful belief than allow you to experience something new and wonderful. Think about that person you know who sabotages every good opportunity. Right when things are going well, they do something to destroy it. We call it self-sabotage, but it's actually self-consistency. Their subconscious holds a belief like, I don't deserve good things, or success is dangerous, and the moment reality contradicts that belief, the subconscious intervenes. It's fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Your subconscious doesn't care about your happiness. It cares about being times right asterisk. It would rather see you fail predictably than succeed unexpectedly. Because success that contradicts your self-image creates cognitive dissonance, and your mind will do anything to resolve that tension even if it means pulling you back down. I've seen people win the lottery and lose it all within a year. Not because they were foolish with money, but because they couldn't reconcile their new reality with their internal identity. Inside, they still saw themselves as someone who struggles, someone who doesn't have enough. So their subconscious found creative ways to restore that familiar state. They made bad investments, trusted the wrong people, developed expensive habits, whatever it took to return to equilibrium. This is why affirmations alone often fail. You stand in front of a mirror saying, I am wealthy, I am successful. But if your subconscious holds a contradictory belief, you're just creating noise. It's like trying to install new software on a computer without removing the virus first. The virus will corrupt everything you try to upload. The subconscious must be reprogrammed at its foundation. And here's the thing most people miss. You can't argue with the subconscious. You can't reason with it. It doesn't speak the language of logic. It speaks the language of feeling, repetition, and imagery. Think about how the original programming got there. When you were a child and someone told you money doesn't grow on trees, or who do you think you are? Those statements didn't lodge in your mind because they were logically sound. They lodged because they were repeated, because they came from authority figures, because they were accompanied by emotional charge. Fear, shame, anger, these are the carriers of subconscious beliefs. So if you want to change the program, you must use the same language. You must feel the new belief. You must repeat it in a state of relaxation when the conscious mind's defenses are down. You must visualize it so vividly that your subconscious cannot distinguish between the imagined experience and a real one. And when you do this, when you truly impress your subconscious with a new belief, you will begin to see evidence of it in your external world, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed. Your perception shifts, your actions shift, and the universe responds accordingly. I remember a man who came to me years ago, completely broken by failure. He had lost his business, his savings, and very nearly his family. He was convinced that he was cursed, that success was simply not meant for him. Every venture he attempted seemed to crumble. And so I asked him a simple question. What do you say to yourself each night before you sleep? He looked at me, confused at first. Then he admitted, I usually lie awake worrying. I think about everything that went wrong. I imagine all the ways things could get worse. There was my answer. Every single night, in that drowsy state between waking and sleeping, that precious threshold where the subconscious mind is most receptive, he was programming himself for failure. He was feeding his inner garden with seeds of worry, fear, and defeat, and his subconscious, being the faithful servant it is, was manifesting exactly what he impressed upon it. I taught him a new practice. Before sleep each night, he was to enter a state of deep relaxation and repeat with feeling, I am a successful businessman. Money flows to me easily and naturally. I make wise decisions and everything I touch prospers. And critically, he was to feel the truth of these words, to imagine himself already living this reality, to see his bank account growing, to feel the confidence of sound decisions, to experience the joy of providing for his family. He resisted at first. It felt like a lie, but I reminded him, your current beliefs about yourself are also just stories you've accepted as truth. Why not choose a better story? Within 3 months, opportunities began appearing. A former colleague reached out with a business proposal. An unexpected check arrived in the mail. More importantly, his demeanor changed. He walked differently. He spoke with conviction. People noticed, and people respond to confidence. This is not magic, this is law. The law of belief operating through the subconscious mind. A man once came to me, broken by financial failure. He had lost everything, his business, his home, the respect of his family. He sat in my office with his head in his hands and said, "Dr. Murphy, I'm cursed. Everything I touch turns to dust." I looked at him and asked a simple question, "What do you think about money?" His answer revealed everything. "Money?" he said bitterly. "Money is the root of all evil. Rich people are greedy. I could never be one of them." Money, there it was, the belief that had shaped his entire financial reality. You see, this man wasn't cursed by fate, he was cursed by his own conviction. Every morning he woke up with the subconscious belief that wealth was evil, that prosperity was somehow immoral, and his subconscious mind, ever faithful, ever obedient, made sure his outer world reflected that inner conviction. I taught him a new technique. Every night before sleep, when the conscious mind relaxes its grip and the subconscious becomes most receptive, he was to repeat a simple truth. Money is good. Money flows to me easily and naturally. I am a channel for divine abundance. The first week, nothing happened. His conscious mind fought back with skepticism and doubt, but he persisted. The second week, a former client called him unexpectedly. The third week, an opportunity emerged from nowhere. Within 6 months, his entire financial situation had transformed. What changed? Not the world around him. The world was the same. What changed was the pattern impressed upon his subconscious mind. This is what most people fail to understand. They try to change their circumstances by struggling against external conditions. They work harder, they push more, they exhaust themselves fighting the effects while ignoring the cause. But the true cause is always within. Change the inner, and the outer must follow. This is not philosophy, this is the actual mechanics of how your mind operates. Your subconscious mind is like a garden. Whatever seeds you plant will grow. Plant seeds of lack, and you harvest poverty. Plant seeds of fear, and you harvest anxiety. Plant seeds of abundance, gratitude, and faith, and you harvest a life of prosperity and peace. The question is not whether this works. The question is, what are you planting right now? Because here's what most people do instead. They plant negative seeds all day long. Thoughts of fear, doubt, resentment, and then they wonder why their life looks the way it does. They sabotage themselves every single morning before breakfast. They wake up and immediately think about what they lack. They scroll through social media comparing their reality to someone else's highlight reel. They complain about their boss, their bills, their body, and with every thought, every word, every feeling, they're planting more seeds of scarcity. Then they come to me and say, "Joseph, I've been affirming abundance for 2 weeks and nothing's changed." 2 weeks, against 20, 30, 40 years of negative conditioning. Do you see the problem? Your subconscious mind has been programmed for decades. It's been absorbing messages from your parents, your teachers, your culture, your past failures. It's been building a complex network of beliefs about what you deserve, what's possible for you, what kind of person you are, and now you want to override all of that with a few half-hearted affirmations while you secretly don't believe a word you're saying? It doesn't work that way. Reprogramming your subconscious requires consistency, emotion, and belief. You must impress upon it with feeling. You must repeat your new truth until it becomes automatic. You must act as if it's already done, not someday but now. This is why I tell people, make your last thoughts before sleep count, because in that drowsy state between waking and sleeping, your conscious mind relaxes its grip. The gatekeeper steps aside, and whatever you plant in those precious moments sinks directly into the subconscious without resistance. Don't fall asleep rehearsing your problems. Don't let the last images in your mind be of fear or failure. Instead, play the movie of your fulfilled desire. See yourself living the life you want. Feel the joy of it. Hear the congratulations. Experience the relief, the satisfaction, the peace. Let that be the last seed you plant before you drift off. And when you wake up, before you check your phone, before you engage with the world's chaos, Spend those first few minutes reinforcing that same vision. This is how you build momentum. This is how you shift the deep patterns that have been running your life on autopilot. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. That's not poetry, that's neuroscience. When you visualize yourself succeeding, when you feel the emotions of already having what you desire, your brain fires the same neural pathways as if it were actually happening. You're literally rewiring yourself at the biological level. Think about athletes who use mental rehearsal before competition. They close their eyes and see themselves executing perfectly the movements, the sounds, the feeling of victory. Studies show this mental practice activates the same brain regions as physical practice. They're not just daydreaming, they're programming their nervous system for success. You can do the same thing with anything in your life. Want a better relationship? Don't just wish for it. Create the inner experience of already having it. Feel what it's like to be loved unconditionally. Hear the words of appreciation. See yourself laughing together, solving problems as a team. Make it so real in your mind that your body responds with actual emotion. This is where most people get stuck. They think about what they want, but they don't feel it. And feeling is the secret. Your subconscious responds to emotion, not logic. You can repeat affirmations all day long, but if there's no feeling behind them, if you don't actually believe what you're saying, you're just making noise. That's why I always say, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Don't beg. Don't plead with the universe. Don't act like you're waiting for permission. Assume it's already done. Walk through your day with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their prayer has been answered. That inner knowing, that feeling of certainty, that's what impresses your subconscious mind and sets the creative forces in motion. Let me give you a practical example. Say you're dealing with financial pressure. Your instinct is to focus on the lack, the bills, the fear. But that only creates more of the same. Instead, you need to turn away from the evidence of your senses and focus on the opposite. Close your eyes and imagine your bank account full. Feel the relief, the freedom, the peace of mind. See yourself paying your bills easily, even generously helping others. Does this mean you ignore practical action? Of course not. But here's the key. When you change your inner state first, the outer actions you take become inspired rather than desperate. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop forcing and start allowing. This is the difference between exhausting yourself trying to make something happen and positioning yourself to receive what's already trying to reach you. Let me share something that changed everything for one of my students. She had been unemployed for 8 months. Every morning, she would wake up with a knot in her stomach, immediately checking her phone for rejection emails. Her job search had become a full-time occupation of anxiety. She was sending out dozens of applications, but each one carried the energy of desperation. I asked her to try something radical. Before doing anything else each morning, spend 15 minutes in a state of absolute conviction that she was already employed in her ideal position. Not hoping for it. Not wishing for it, feeling it as done. At first she resisted. But I need to be actively looking, she protested. I can't just sit around imagining things. I said, I'm not asking you to stop taking action. I'm asking you to change the state from which you take action. She agreed to try. Every morning for 2 weeks, she practiced feeling the relief, the gratitude, the certainty of being employed. She imagined walking into her new office, the weight of financial stress lifting from her shoulders. She felt it until it became real in her inner world. Here's what happened. After 10 days, she was at a coffee shop when she struck up a conversation with someone in line. It turned out this person worked at a company she'd never heard of. They mentioned they were struggling to fill a position. 3 weeks later, she had the job. Now you might say that was coincidence. But here's what she told me. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying anxiety like a heavy backpack. I was relaxed, open, present. I think that's why I even had that conversation. The old me would have been too wrapped up in my worries to notice anyone around me. And I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. That conversation didn't just brighten my day, it planted a seed. The woman mentioned she was starting a small community garden project and needed volunteers. 3 weeks later, I found myself digging in the dirt on Saturday mornings, meeting neighbors I'd never spoken to, learning about plants I couldn't even name before. Would that have happened if I'd been vibrating at my old frequency? Absolutely not. I would have walked right past her. I would have been so absorbed in my mental drama that I wouldn't have even made eye contact. This is what people miss about changing your state of being. They think it's just about feeling better in the moment. But feeling better in the moment changes what you notice. It changes who approaches you. It changes the opportunities that seem to materialize out of thin air. Your subconscious mind is always working. It's always scanning your environment. But what it scans for depends entirely on the frequency you're broadcasting. When you're in a state of anxiety and lack, your subconscious highlights threats and scarcity. When you're in a state of peace and fulfillment, it highlights possibilities and abundance. I started noticing this pattern everywhere. The more I practiced entering that state of having what I desired, the more my external world seemed to rearrange itself, not through magic, through attention, through different choices, through showing up differently in every interaction. You see, most people are trying to change their lives while staying exactly the same person. They want different results with the same thoughts, the same emotional patterns, the same reactions. And then they wonder why nothing shifts. But here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. You cannot change your life without changing yourself. You cannot attract different circumstances while remaining the same consciousness. The two are inseparable. And I don't mean you need to become someone you're not. I mean you need to become who you already are beneath all the conditioning and fear and doubt. You need to remember the version of yourself that existed before the world told you what to worry about. Because here's what most people don't understand. The subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a real experience and one vividly imagined. That's not mysticism. That's neuroscience. When you visualize yourself succeeding with the same emotional intensity as if it were happening right now, your brain creates the same neural pathways it would create if the experience were actually occurring. Think about that for a moment. Your mind is building the architecture of your future based on what you feed it today. Every time you replay that scene of confidence in your imagination, you're literally rehearsing success at a neurological level. You're training your nervous system to recognize that state as normal, as familiar, as home. But most people do the exact opposite. They rehearse failure. They replay their embarrassments. They imagine worst-case scenarios with crystal clarity and full emotional engagement. And then they wonder why their life feels like a series of self-fulfilling prophecies. I'm not saying ignore reality. I'm saying stop giving more reality to your fears than to your aspirations. Because whatever you're giving your attention to, whatever you're feeling deeply and repeatedly, that's what you're instructing your subconscious to create more of. And this is where the real work begins. Not in the desperate moments when everything's falling apart and you're trying to think positive thoughts like throwing a bucket of water on a house fire. The real work happens in those quiet moments when you consciously choose what seeds to plant in the garden of your mind. You see, most people are passive recipients of their own mental content. Thoughts arrive, and they assume those thoughts are truth. An anxious thought appears, and they believe they have something to be anxious about. A limiting belief surfaces, and they accept it as an accurate assessment of their capabilities. But you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes thoughts. And once you realize that distinction, everything changes. Because now you have choice. Now you can say, that's an interesting thought, but I don't accept it. That's not the truth I'm planting today. And here's what happens when you start exercising that choice consistently. Your whole relationship with your own mind changes. You stop being the victim of your thoughts. You become the gardener, the architect, the director. I've watched this transformation countless times. Someone comes to me saying, I can't help what I think. And within weeks of practicing these principles, they're telling me, I caught myself today. I was about to accept a negative thought, and I stopped. I replaced it. I chose differently. That's not willpower. That's not positive thinking covering up reality. That's understanding the law. That's recognizing that you don't have to accept every thought that knocks on the door of your mind. Think of your mind like a radio receiver. It picks up all kinds of signals, all kinds of frequencies. Some are beautiful, harmonious, constructive. Others are chaotic, fearful, destructive. But here's the key. Just because you receive a signal doesn't mean you have to tune into it. You don't have to amplify it. You don't have to broadcast it into your experience. When a thought of limitation comes, you can acknowledge it without accepting it. You can say, I see you, but you're not the truth of my being. You're not what I'm cultivating in this garden. This is where real freedom begins. Not freedom from having thoughts, but freedom in how you respond to them. not immunity to suggestion, but sovereignty over what suggestions you allow to take root. And the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. Your subconscious mind begins to work with you instead of against you. It starts filtering out the negative automatically because you've trained it. You've shown it what you value, what you accept, what aligns with your vision. It's like training a guard at the gate of a castle. At first, the guard lets everyone through because it doesn't know any better. But once you give clear instructions, once you establish the standards, that guard becomes vigilant. It recognizes threats. It protects what's precious inside those walls. Your subconscious can become that guard, but only if you give it clear, consistent instructions through your conscious choices. Now, here's where most people trip themselves up. They want the subconscious to protect them from negative influences, but they keep opening the door themselves. They're inviting the very thing they claim to fear right into the living room of their mind. You can't pray for peace and then spend 3 hours scrolling through arguments on social media. You can't affirm abundance and then constantly complain about what you lack. You can't visualize health and then obsess over every symptom you feel. That's not protection, that's self-sabotage. The subconscious doesn't judge. It doesn't say, well, they spent an hour meditating this morning, so I'll ignore the 5 hours of worry that came after. It accepts everything. It records everything. And it moves you toward whatever you've impressed upon it most deeply, most frequently, most emotionally. So the question becomes, what are you impressing most? What are you feeling most intensely throughout your day? Because here's a truth that might sting. Your subconscious is already protecting something. Right now. It's protecting your current self-concept. It's guarding the identity you've built, even if that identity includes limitation, fear, or unworthiness. If you've spent years thinking of yourself as someone who struggles, your subconscious will protect that struggle. It'll guard it like treasure. Why? Because to your subconscious, consistency equals survival. It knows you as the person who struggles, so any attempt to become someone who succeeds feels like danger, like death of the known self. This is why people self-sabotage right before breakthrough. They get close to the thing they've been wanting and suddenly they freeze, procrastinate, or create drama. It's not bad luck. It's the subconscious doing its job, protecting the old identity because that's what it knows is safe. But you can change what it protects. You can reassign the guard to watch over a new identity, a higher self-concept, a greater vision of who you truly are. How? Through persistent, loving repetition, through saturation, through making your new self-concept more familiar than the old one. Think of your mind like fertile soil. If you plant seeds of doubt, fear, and unworthiness, that's what will grow. If you plant seeds of confidence, abundance, and love, those will flourish instead. But here's what most people don't understand. You can't just plant new seeds once and expect a harvest. You must tend the garden daily. You must water those seeds with attention, pull out the weeds of negative thought, and protect your garden from the storms of outside opinion. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether what you're telling it is true or false, deserved or undeserved. It simply accepts what you consistently impress upon it. This is why affirmations work, but only when done correctly. Most people say an affirmation a few times, feel silly, don't see immediate results, and quit. They're planting seeds and then immediately digging them up to check if they've sprouted. Real transformation requires what I call loving persistence. You speak to yourself with kindness, with authority, with the certainty of someone who already knows the truth, not from desperation, not from lack, but from a deep inner knowing that what you're claiming is already yours in consciousness. Let me share something powerful with you. A woman once came to me after years of financial struggle. She was intelligent, hardworking, but money seemed to slip through her fingers no matter what she did. I asked her, "What do you tell yourself about money?" She immediately responded, "Money is hard to come by. I'm just not good with finances. Rich people are lucky or corrupt." There was her self-concept around money, crystallized into beliefs that had become her reality. I gave her a simple practice. Every morning and night, before sleeping and upon waking, she was to affirm with feeling, "Money flows to me easily and naturally. I am wise with finances. I am a magnet for prosperity." The first week, she felt foolish. The words felt like lies. But she persisted because I told her, "Don't wait to feel it, to say it. Say it until you feel it." Within 3 weeks, something shifted. She called me and said, "Joseph, I don't know what happened, but he apologized. He came home with flowers and asked if we could start over." I wasn't surprised. Because here's what most people miss. When you change your inner conversation, you change the outer circumstances. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It accepts what you consistently impress upon it and then rearranges your world to match. This is not magic. This is law. Let me give you another example. A man came to me who had been unemployed for 8 months. Every interview ended the same way: rejection. He was convinced the economy was against him, that his age was a disadvantage, that employers were biased. I said, "You're right. As long as you believe that, it will be true for you." He looked at me like I'd slapped him. I continued, "Your belief is your world. If you walk into an interview convinced they won't hire you, you radiate that conviction. They feel it. Not because they're psychic, but because every word you speak, every gesture you make, every hesitation in your voice confirms what you already believe." I gave him a simple instruction. Before you sleep tonight, imagine yourself employed. See yourself waking up, getting dressed for work, feeling the satisfaction of a job well done. Hear your colleagues greeting you, feel the paycheck in your hand, live in that reality until you fall asleep. He protested. "But I don't have a job. How can I feel employed?" "That," I said, "is exactly why you don't have one. The imagination is the workshop of the mind. Whatever you consistently imagine and feel as real, your subconscious accepts as instruction. It doesn't wait for permission from your circumstances. It begins immediately to orchestrate events, attract opportunities, and guide you toward the fulfillment of that image." Within 2 weeks, he received a call from a company he'd interviewed with months prior. A position had opened unexpectedly. They wanted him to start immediately. Coincidence? No. Consequence. She didn't get lucky. She aligned. She matched frequency. She became, in consciousness, what she desired in experience. This is the science behind every unexplainable breakthrough you've ever witnessed. The person who lands the dream job the day after they finally let go of desperation. The entrepreneur who attracts the perfect investor the moment they stop chasing and start embodying success. The patient who experiences spontaneous healing after years of affirming wholeness instead of disease. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It doesn't question whether you deserve what you're claiming. It simply accepts the dominant impression you give it and sets about making it real. So when you say, "I am wealthy," and you feel wealthy, and you think from wealth rather than toward it, your subconscious mind begins reorganizing your entire reality to match that assumption. It doesn't matter that your bank account currently says otherwise. Your subconscious doesn't check your balance. It checks your belief. And here's where most people stumble. They try to use this law while simultaneously contradicting it. They affirm abundance in the morning, then spend the afternoon complaining about bills. They visualize success at night, then wake up rehearsing failure. They declare themselves healed, then immediately Google their symptoms to confirm the disease. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot impress your subconscious with health while obsessing over illness. You cannot impress it with wealth while dwelling in poverty. You cannot impress it with love while broadcasting resentment. The gate is narrow. The way is definite. You must choose which state you will occupy, and then you must be faithful to that state until it hardens into fact. I'm not saying ignore reality. I'm saying stop worshiping it. Stop giving your current circumstances the final vote on what's possible for you. Your present situation is nothing more than the outpicturing of yesterday's thoughts. Why would you use it as evidence for tomorrow's limitations? Instead, start here. Right now. This moment. What do you want to be true about your life? Don't tell me what you hope for. Don't tell me what you're working toward. Tell me what you claim is already done. Your word is your power. Your word is the blueprint the universe follows. When you say, "I am healed," you're not wishing for health, you're declaring a reality that already exists in the invisible realm. When you say, "I am prosperous," you're not asking permission, you're announcing what is already yours by divine right. Look at the biblical promise. "Whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith." Not what he wishes, not what he begs for, what he says with conviction, I've watched people transform their entire lives simply by changing their vocabulary. A woman came to me drowning in debt, saying every day, "I'm so broke, I'll never get out of this hole." I asked her to change one thing, her words. For 30 days, she said instead, "Money flows to me easily and constantly. I am financially free." She didn't believe it at first. Her bank account hadn't changed. Her bills were still there. But she spoke it anyway. Within weeks, opportunities appeared. An old client returned with a large payment. A side business idea materialized. By the end of 90 days, she was debt-free, not because of magic, because her subconscious mind, hearing her new command, went to work finding ways to make it real. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't debate whether you deserve what you're claiming. It simply accepts your word as instruction and begins orchestrating circumstances, ideas, and encounters to match your declaration. This is why complaint is so dangerous. Every time you say, "I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm struggling," you're giving your subconscious a command, and it obeys. It will find ways to keep you tired, sick, and struggling because you've declared it so. Stop announcing your problems. Stop rehearsing your limitations. Your words are too powerful to waste on conditions you don't want. Instead, speak to the mountain, not about it. You don't go around telling everyone how big the obstacle is. You command it to move. You address the condition directly with the power of your word. I've watched people transform terminal diagnoses by refusing to give them linguistic power. They didn't deny the medical report, but they refused to claim it as their permanent reality. They said, "This is what the test shows today, but my body knows how to heal. Every cell is renewing toward perfect health." And I've seen those same people walk out of hospitals when doctors had written them off. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't fact-check your statements. It simply accepts what you consistently declare as true and sets about making it your reality. This is why two people can have identical circumstances but completely different outcomes. One says, "I'm struggling," and struggles. The other says, "I'm growing stronger every day," and does exactly that. Listen to how you answer when someone asks, "How are you?" Most people recite a litany of complaints as if they're reading a medical chart. "Oh, my back's killing me, I'm exhausted, this weather's making me miserable." You just created that reality more firmly with every word. Instead, you could say, "I'm getting better and better." You could say, "I'm blessed and highly favored." You could say, "Every day I'm moving closer to my dreams." It doesn't matter if it feels completely true in the moment. You're not reporting current conditions. You're creating new ones. The principle is this. Your word is the only tool you need to reshape your entire world. Not money, not connections, not circumstances. Your word. The same creative power that spoke universes into existence lives in your mouth right now. I knew a man who lost everything in the Depression. His business collapsed, his savings evaporated, his property was foreclosed. Everyone around him spoke words of despair and doom. But he made a decision. He began declaring every morning, "I am a magnet for wealth and opportunity. Money flows to me from expected and unexpected sources." He repeated this statement with conviction, morning and evening, before sleep and upon waking. He didn't shout it or force it. He simply stated it with calm authority, as if reading from a ledger that already recorded his success. Within 2 months, something remarkable happened. A former colleague reached out with a consulting opportunity that paid more than his previous salary. An uncle he barely knew passed away and left him a modest inheritance. A side project he'd abandoned years ago suddenly attracted interest from investors. Were these coincidences? Absolutely not. His subconscious mind, impressed with his new conviction, began orchestrating circumstances, attracting opportunities, and directing his attention toward possibilities that had always existed but were previously invisible to his fear-clouded vision. This is the power you possess right now, in this very moment. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It doesn't question whether you deserve what you're affirming. It simply accepts what you consistently impress upon it and then works tirelessly to bring that impression into material form. Let me share something that might revolutionize how you see your current circumstances. Every condition in your life right now, your bank account, your relationships, your health, your living situation, is a perfect reflection of your dominant mental attitude, not your conscious wishes, but your deep, habitual thought patterns. This is why positive thinking alone fails so many people. They consciously desire wealth while unconsciously believing they're unworthy of it. They want love while secretly feeling unlovable. They seek health while identifying with sickness. The subconscious always wins this battle because it operates with far greater power than the conscious mind. But here's the liberating truth. You can change your subconscious programming. You can rewrite the script. You can dissolve patterns that have controlled you for decades, sometimes in a matter of weeks. The method is simple, though it requires consistency and understanding. You must reach your subconscious mind in its own language, the language of feeling, imagination, and repetition. When you're preparing an affirmation for wealth, don't just recite words mechanically. Feel the relief of financial security. Imagine the sensation of opening your bank statement and seeing abundance. This is why I always tell people, treat your affirmations like you would treat a precious seed. You wouldn't throw a seed onto concrete and expect it to grow, would you? You'd prepare the soil. You'd water it. You'd give it sunlight. Your mind is that soil and feeling is the water and sunlight combined. Let me give you a practical example. Suppose you're affirming, I am radiating perfect health. Now you can say those words 50 times while worrying about your symptoms, doubting the process, and feeling sick, and you'll get nowhere. The subconscious doesn't respond to the words alone. It responds to the conviction behind them. Instead, when you say, I am radiating perfect health, pause, close your eyes, feel what perfect health would feel like in your body. Imagine waking up with energy coursing through your veins. Picture yourself moving freely, breathing deeply, feeling vitality in every cell. Let yourself smile at how good it feels. That's when the subconscious says, this is what we're creating. The great artists, inventors, and leaders throughout history understood this principle instinctively. Before Thomas Edison created the light bulb, he saw it completed in his mind. He felt the satisfaction of success before the physical manifestation appeared. That feeling state magnetized the ideas, the resources, and the persistence needed to bring it into form. You might be thinking, but Joseph, what if I can't feel it? What if the feeling won't come? This is where practice becomes essential. Feeling is a skill, like playing piano or building muscle. The first time you sit at a piano, you don't expect to play Beethoven. You start with simple notes. Start with something easy to feel. If you can't feel financial abundance yet, start by feeling grateful for the roof over your head tonight. Feel appreciation for the meal you'll eat today. Build the emotional muscle gradually. As you become skilled at generating positive feeling states, you can then attach those feelings to bigger desires. Here's another key point. Your feelings don't have to match your current circumstances. In fact, they shouldn't. Your current circumstances are simply the result of your past thinking and feeling. If you want different circumstances tomorrow, you must think and feel differently today regardless of what your senses are telling you. This is where faith becomes practical, not mystical. Faith is not wishful thinking or blind hope. Faith is the decision to persist in your new assumption despite contradictory evidence. It's the mental discipline to hold your vision steady while the old conditions are still visible. Think of it like ordering something online. You click the button, you receive the confirmation, and then you go about your life. You don't refresh the tracking page every 5 minutes in panic. You don't call customer service demanding to know why it hasn't arrived yet when it's only been an hour. You trust the process. You know it's on its way. Your subconscious mind works the same way. Once you've impressed it with your desire, once you've felt the reality of your wish fulfilled, you must trust that it's now working behind the scenes to bring it into manifestation. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is not to force doors open. Your job is simply to maintain the feeling, to return to that inner conviction whenever doubt creeps in. And doubt will creep in. That's guaranteed. Your friends might question you. Your bank account might mock you. Your circumstances might seem to get worse before they get better. This is the testing period, and most people fail it. They give up right before the breakthrough because they let the outer conditions convince them that it's not working. But here's what you must understand. The subconscious mind moves in cycles. There's a gestation period between planting and harvest. You wouldn't dig up a seed every day to check if it's growing. That would destroy it. Yet that's exactly what most people do with their mental seeds. They plant them with feeling one day, then dig them up with doubt the next. Persistence means watering the seed daily with feeling. It means protecting it from the frost of negative thinking. It means refusing to let others trample on your inner garden with their skepticism and fear. And let me share with you what happens in the months that follow your faithful planting. The subconscious doesn't work on your schedule. It works on the schedule of nature, of divine timing, of perfect unfoldment. I've watched people plant their seed in January and see nothing by March. They begin to doubt. They begin to question. They look at their bank account, their relationships, their circumstances, and they say, it's not working. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading. Connections are forming. Opportunities are aligning. The entire universe is rearranging itself to match the pattern you've impressed upon your subconscious mind. This is where most people fail. They quit watering their garden in April because they see no sprouts. They abandon their mental discipline. They return to their old patterns of thinking, and the seed, just days away from breaking through the soil, withers and dies. I'm telling you now, the darkest hour is just before the dawn. The longest stretch of faith is the final stretch before manifestation. I knew a woman who affirmed abundance daily for 11 months with no visible change. Her friends thought she'd lost her mind. Her family staged an intervention, but she continued, morning and evening, impressing the feeling of wealth upon her subconscious mind. In the 12th month, she received an unexpected inheritance, a job offer that tripled her salary, and a business opportunity that generated passive income for the rest of her life. 3 decades later, she's still living in the abundance that began with that 1 year of faithful persistence. Was it coincidence? Was it luck? No, it was law. It was the subconscious mind, given clear direction and sustained emotion, reshaping her entire reality to match her inner conviction. And here's what persistence really requires. You must become comfortable with the discomfort of the waiting period. You must learn to live in 2 worlds simultaneously, the world as it appears and the world as you know it to be in consciousness. This is the art of living from the end. This is the practice of inhabiting your wish fulfilled even while circumstances seem to contradict it. Let me tell you about a woman who demonstrated this principle with extraordinary clarity. She came to me seeking help with what seemed an impossible financial situation. She had lost her job, her savings were depleted, and creditors were demanding payment. The external world screamed poverty at her from every direction. But instead of accepting this appearance as final, she began a practice that transformed everything. Each night before sleep, she would enter a state of deep relaxation and imagine herself reviewing her bank statement, seeing an abundant balance. She would feel the relief, the freedom, the gratitude. She would imagine calling her creditors and paying them in full, feeling the dignity and satisfaction of meeting her obligations. During the day, when fear would arise, when bills would arrive, when her rational mind would scream that she was delusional, she would gently return to the feeling of her wish fulfilled. She didn't deny the bills existed. She didn't pretend the situation wasn't challenging, but she refused to accept it as her final reality. Within 6 weeks, through a series of events that she could never have orchestrated consciously, she received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew existed. The amount was precisely what she had been imagining in her bank account. Was this coincidence? Was this luck? No. This was law. This was the natural outworking of consciousness manifesting as circumstance. You see, when you persist in occupying a state of consciousness, when you live from the end with consistency and feeling, you set in motion forces that must produce corresponding effects in your outer world. This is not supernatural, it is the most natural thing in the universe. But here is what most people miss. The time between the assumption and the manifestation is not dead time. It is not empty waiting. It is the period in which your assumption is hardening into fact. Every moment you remain faithful to your assumption, you are shortening that interval. Every moment you return to doubt, you are lengthening it. Think of it like this. Imagine you planted a seed in fertile soil. You cannot dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You must trust the process. You water it, you ensure it has sunlight, and you wait with confidence. Your assumption is the seed. Your persistence in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the watering, and your faith is the sunlight. And when all 3 elements come together, when you plant the right seed, when you water it consistently, and when you give it the light of unwavering faith, there is no force in heaven or on earth that can prevent your harvest. This is not philosophy. This is spiritual law. Now, I want to share with you one of the most profound passages in all of Scripture, one that holds the master key to manifestation. Jesus said, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Read that again slowly. Believe that you have received it. Not, believe that you will receive it someday. Not, hope it might come if you're lucky. But believe that you have received it, past tense, already done, accomplished fact. This is the secret that mystifies millions and liberates thousands. You must live from the end. You must think from the state of the wish fulfilled, not toward it. Most people make this fundamental error. They think of their desire. They look at it from a distance, as something separate from themselves, something out there that they're trying to reach. But the master thinks from the desire. He occupies the state. He wears it like a garment. He breathes the air of that reality. Let me give you a concrete example. Suppose you desire financial freedom. The amateur sits in his lack and thinks about abundance. He pictures money, he imagines wealth, but he thinks about it from his current state of limitation. The master does something entirely different. He closes his eyes and assumes the feeling of already being financially free. He doesn't look at freedom from poverty, he looks at his old limitations from freedom. Do you see the difference? It's subtle but absolutely crucial. When you think from the wish fulfilled, your entire mental and emotional posture changes. Your inner speech changes. Your reactions change. Your assumptions change. If you were already wealthy, would you worry about the bill that just arrived? No. You might note it, but you wouldn't feel that contraction of fear. You would feel the calm assurance of someone who knows the resources are available. If you were already in perfect health, would you obsess over every symptom? No. You would trust your body's wisdom and vitality. If you were already loved and appreciated, would you desperately seek validation? No. You would move through the world with quiet confidence. This is what it means to live from the end. You wouldn't need to announce your success to anyone. You wouldn't need validation or approval. The reality would be so deeply embedded in your consciousness that external circumstances would simply reflect what you already know to be true. This is the difference between wishing and believing. Wishing says, "I hope this happens." Believing says, "It is already done." When you live from the end, you align yourself with the creative power of the universe. You stop pushing against reality and start allowing it to unfold naturally. You become magnetic rather than desperate, attractive rather than needy. I want you to understand something profound. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between a real experience and one vividly imagined. This is not theory. This is neurological fact. When you imagine something with emotional intensity, your brain fires the same neural pathways as if the event were actually happening. Athletes have known this for decades. Visualization is not some mystical practice reserved for monks and philosophers. It's a practical tool used by Olympians, surgeons, and performers at the highest level. They rehearse success in their minds before it manifests in reality. But here's what most people miss. They visualize once or twice and then wait for results. That's not how this works. The key is repetition with feeling. You must impress your desire upon your subconscious mind consistently until it accepts it as fact. Think of your subconscious as soil. You don't plant a seed, dig it up the next day to check if it's growing, and then complain that nothing happened. You plant it, water it, and trust the process. You know the seed is doing its work beneath the surface, even when you can't see evidence of growth. Your desires are the same. When you plant them through imaginal acts, repeated with conviction and feeling, they take root. They grow in the invisible realm of consciousness before breaking through into visible reality. This is why patience coupled with faith is so powerful. You're not waiting passively. You're actively maintaining the state of your wish fulfilled while allowing time and natural law to bring it into being. So how do you sustain this state? How do you remain faithful when nothing seems to be changing? First, you must guard your mind vigilantly. Your mind is sacred ground. It's the garden where your future is being cultivated right now, in this very moment. And you cannot allow weeds of doubt, fear, and negative speculation to choke out the seeds you've planted. This means you must become selective about what you allow into your consciousness. The conversations you engage in, the media you consume, the thoughts you entertain, all of these are either watering your desire or poisoning it. I've seen people sabotage their own demonstrations simply because they couldn't resist discussing their problems. They would plant their seed in the morning through prayer, and by afternoon, they'd be telling everyone who would listen about how terrible their situation was. They were uprooting their own seed before it could take hold. When someone asks you about your problem, you don't need to rehearse all the evidence of lack. You can acknowledge the current situation without giving it power. You can say, "I'm handling it," or "things are working out," and then redirect the conversation. This isn't denial, it's wisdom. It's refusing to water the very thing you want to eliminate. Second, return to your inner conviction multiple times throughout the day. You don't need to repeat your entire mental session, but you can touch that feeling state briefly. When doubt whispers, when anxiety rises, when impatience threatens to overwhelm you, pause, take a breath, and reconnect with the feeling of your wish fulfilled. I recommend what I call feeling flashbacks. Throughout your day, take just 10 or 15 seconds to recall the feeling you generated during your meditation. Feel it again just for a moment. Let it wash over you. This keeps your consciousness aligned with your desire even as you go about your daily activities. Think of it like tuning a guitar. You don't tune it once and expect it to stay in tune forever. You check it, adjust it, bring it back to the right frequency. Your consciousness is the same way. The world constantly tries to pull you out of tune with your desire. Your job is to keep tuning yourself back. Third, act from the end. This is perhaps the most misunderstood principle, so listen carefully. Acting from the end doesn't mean pretending you have something you don't have. It doesn't mean spending money you don't possess or making foolish decisions based on wishful thinking. Acting from the end means allowing your actions to be guided by the consciousness of your wish fulfilled. When you live from the end, your decisions naturally align with the person you are becoming. If you assume the feeling of being successful in your career, you won't act desperate in interviews. You won't grasp or cling. You'll speak with quiet confidence because inwardly, you already are what you seek to become. This is the secret behind so-called lucky breaks and fortunate coincidences. They aren't luck at all. They are the outer manifestation of an inner conviction. The world has no choice but to reflect back to you what you are convinced is true within yourself. Now, I want to address a common obstacle that prevents many from successfully applying this law. This obstacle is the addiction to process. We have been conditioned to believe that every achievement must follow a logical, linear path. We think we must see every step between here and there before we can believe in the possibility, but imagination does not work that way. Imagination leaps. It moves in quantum jumps, not incremental steps. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check its progress. You trust the intelligence within the seed to do its work beneath the surface. Your desires operate on the same principle. Stop trying to figure out how your desire will come to pass. The how is none of your concern. Your job is to define the end and feel its reality. The subconscious mind, which is infinitely intelligent and connected to all things, will orchestrate the means. I've seen people delay their good for years because they couldn't see the bridge between where they were and where they wanted to be. They demanded a detailed map before they would accept the journey. But life doesn't hand you the map first. Life responds to your assumption. Accept the end, and the path reveals itself step by step. You don't need to orchestrate every detail. You don't need to know every person who will help you, every conversation that will open a door, every coincidence that will align in your favor. That's the work of your subconscious mind, the infinite intelligence within you. Your job is to assume the wish fulfilled and let the universe handle the logistics. I've watched people torture themselves trying to figure out the how. They say, "I want financial freedom, but I don't know how to start a business. I don't have the connections. I don't have the capital." They're trying to build the bridge before they've even accepted the other side exists. And that resistance, that need to control every step, is exactly what blocks the path. When you assume the end, you're not being reckless. You're not ignoring practical action. You're aligning yourself with a higher order of intelligence that knows more than your conscious mind ever could. You're saying, "I don't need to see the whole staircase. I just need to take the first step." And the first step is always the assumption. Let me give you a concrete example. A woman once came to me desperate for a job. She'd been unemployed for months, sending out resumes with no response. She was convinced the economy was against her, that her age was a disadvantage, that she was invisible. I told her to stop trying to force the doors open and instead assume she already had the perfect job. Every night before sleep, she imagined herself in an office, valued and appreciated, doing work she loved. She felt the relief, the gratitude, the satisfaction. She stopped obsessing over job boards and simply lived from that assumption. Within 2 weeks, a former colleague reached out someone she hadn't spoken to in years. That colleague had just joined a new company and thought of her for a position that hadn't even been advertised yet. She got the job. No struggle, no force, just assumption and alignment. That's how the subconscious works. It doesn't need your anxiety or your micromanagement. It needs your faith. It needs you to get out of the way and let it work through the infinite channels available to it. So stop demanding the map. Stop insisting on guarantees. Accept the end. Live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And watch as the path unfolds naturally, effortlessly, perfectly in ways you could never have planned. There's something I need you to understand about faith, real faith, not the kind you put on like a Sunday coat. Real faith is a living thing. It breathes, it acts, it expects. You see, most people confuse faith with hope. They say, I have faith it will work out. But what they really mean is, I hope it works out, but I'm not sure. That's not faith. That's wishful thinking dressed up in spiritual language. Faith is the awareness that it is already done. Faith doesn't cross its fingers. Faith doesn't pace the floor worrying. Faith doesn't have a backup plan because it knows there's nothing to back up from. When you have real faith, you move through your day with a quiet certainty that would look like arrogance to someone who doesn't understand the law. But it's not arrogance. It's knowledge. It's the same certainty you have that the sun will rise tomorrow, that water will flow downhill, that spring will follow winter. The Bible tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Let me tell you what that really means. Faith is the substance, the actual material that your desire is made of in the invisible realm before it manifests in the visible. It's not waiting for substance. It is the substance. And it's the evidence, not the hope of evidence, but the actual proof of realities that haven't yet appeared to your physical senses. You don't need to see it with your eyes to know it's real. You feel it in your consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality. When you pray, you're not begging an external God to change his mind about you. You're impressing your subconscious mind with the reality you choose to experience. And once impressed, your subconscious mind, which is the builder of your world, goes to work making it so. This is why I tell you, pray believing you have already received, and you shall receive. Not you might receive, not if you're lucky you'll receive, you shall receive. It's law, it's certain, it's done. And when you speak that way, something extraordinary happens in your nervous system. Your whole body responds. Every cell, every nerve, every fiber of your being begins to reorganize itself around that new assumption. Science calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on consistent thought patterns. But you and I know it's much deeper than that. It's the infinite intelligence within you responding to the mold you've created with your words and feelings. I've watched people transform their entire financial situation simply by changing what they say. A man came to me drowning in debt, constantly telling everyone, I'm broke, I'm always broke, I'll never get ahead. His very words were the chains binding him. I said, stop. From this moment forward, you will not speak those words again. Instead, you will say, money flows to me easily and constantly. I am a magnet for prosperity. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but he trusted the process. For 30 days, he guarded his speech like a treasure. Every time the old phrases tried to escape his lips, he caught them and replaced them with the truth of abundance. And do you know what happened? Within those 30 days, he received an unexpected promotion, a side business opportunity fell into his lap, and money he'd written off as lost was suddenly returned to him. The universe had no choice but to respond to his new pattern of speech. Your words are not just vibrations in the air, they are commands to the creative power within you. They are instructions to your subconscious mind about what to create in your life. When you say, I am healthy, your subconscious begins marshaling all the forces of healing in your body. When you say, I am loved, you begin radiating a frequency that attracts love from every direction. When you say, I am guided, divine intelligence begins orchestrating circumstances, meetings, and opportunities beyond anything your conscious mind could arrange. This is why the ancient teachers emphasize the power of blessing. To bless means to speak well of. When you bless your body, your finances, your relationships, you are speaking the word of truth over them. When you say, I bless my body with perfect health, you are not trying to change reality, you are declaring the reality that already exists in the invisible realm. You are calling forth that which already is. This is the creative power of the word. I have witnessed countless individuals transform their physical conditions through this principle. A woman came to me suffering from chronic pain that doctors could not explain. I taught her this simple practice. Every morning and evening she would place her hand on the affected area and speak words of blessing. I bless this part of my body with perfect circulation. I bless these cells with divine intelligence. I bless this tissue with complete healing. Within weeks, the pain began to subside. Within months, it disappeared entirely. The doctors were amazed, but I was not. She had simply aligned her conscious mind with the truth of her subconscious, and her body responded to that truth. This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking is merely a surface activity of the conscious mind. This is conviction. This is knowing. This is speaking from the place of already having received. When you speak from this place, your words carry the authority of the infinite. Think of it this way: you would never look at an acorn and say, "This poor little seed will never become an oak tree." You recognize that the oak tree is already present within the acorn. The pattern is already there. The intelligence is already there. All that is required is the proper environment for it to manifest. Your desire is like that acorn. The fulfillment is already present within it. When you speak the word of truth, when you declare, "It is done. I have received. I am whole," you are providing the proper mental and emotional environment for that desire to manifest in your three-dimensional world. But here is where most people stumble. They speak the word, and then in the next breath they contradict it. They say, "I am healed," and then moments later, "But I still feel the pain." They declare, "I am prosperous," and then immediately think, "But my bank account says otherwise." This divided mind cannot receive. Jesus taught this clearly. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Your consciousness must be unified. You must speak the word and then guard your mind against all contradictory thoughts. This is why spiritual teachers emphasize the silence. Not because silence itself has power, but because in silence you cease contradicting yourself. In silence, you are not feeding both the positive and the negative. You are simply resting in the awareness of your fulfilled desire. I've watched people sabotage answered prayers through this very mechanism. They pray successfully. The answer begins to materialize. Signs appear, doors open, and then they begin to analyze. They begin to question. Is this really it? Should I wait for something better? Maybe I made a mistake. That analysis is the enemy. The questioning mind is the divided house. When you plant a seed in your garden, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You trust the process. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you leave it alone. Your consciousness works the same way. Once the seed of your desire has been planted through feeling, through the wish fulfilled, your job is to protect that seed. Guard it. Don't let the crows of doubt peck it away. Don't let the weeds of contradictory thought choke it. I'm not suggesting you become delusional. You don't deny observable facts. If you're in debt, you acknowledge the bills. But you don't make them your dwelling place. You don't build your mental house in the land of lack. You observe what is, and then you return to what you have declared shall be. This is what it means to walk by faith, not by sight. Faith is not hoping something will happen. Faith is the deep inner knowing that it is already done. It is fidelity to the unseen reality you have created within yourself. And here's what most people miss. This inner fidelity becomes outer fact not because you force it, not because you manipulate circumstances, but because your consciousness is the only reality. What you are conscious of being, you become. What you feel to be true becomes true in your world. The bridge of incidents, the seemingly random events that lead to your manifestation will appear. They always do. But they appear in response to your state of consciousness, not your efforts. Your job is to maintain the state. The how is none of your business. This is why people say affirmations for years and see nothing. They're trying to use words to force a result, rather than using words to enter a state. The words themselves have no power. But when you speak them from the assumption they're already true, you move into the feeling, and the feeling has all the power. Let me give you something practical. Tonight, before you sleep, don't recite what you want. Don't beg. Don't visualize elaborate scenarios. Simply assume the wish fulfilled. If you desire financial abundance, feel what it's like to be financially secure. Not excited secure, not desperate for more, satisfied with plenty. If you desire love, don't imagine meeting someone. Feel loved right now. Feel cherished, appreciated, seen. Let that feeling saturate you as you drift into sleep. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't question. It accepts what you impress upon it in that drowsy state. And once accepted, it begins to outpicture that impression into your world. You'll wake up and find circumstances shifting, opportunities appearing, people behaving differently toward you. Not because you manipulated anything, but because you changed the inner cause. Here's what most people miss. You don't need to know the next step. You don't need a plan. You don't need to figure out how it's all going to unfold. Your conscious mind is limited. It can only see a few moves ahead. But your subconscious mind is connected to infinite intelligence. It sees all paths, all possibilities, all connections. When you impress it with the end result, it orchestrates means you could never have imagined. I've seen this happen countless times. Someone impresses their subconscious with the feeling of already having their desire. They let go of the how. And then seemingly out of nowhere they get a phone call, an idea, a chance meeting, an unexpected opportunity. They call it luck, they call it coincidence, but it's neither. It's law. It's the subconscious arranging circumstances to match the inner conviction. So stop trying to figure it out. Stop trying to control the process. Your job is singular. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live from that assumption. And let the infinite power within you handle everything else. Because here's what most people miss. They think living in the end means pretending. They think it's about lying to themselves or putting on a performance. But that's not it at all. Living in the end is about occupying the state that corresponds to your wish fulfilled. It's about entering the consciousness of the person who already has what you desire. And you do this not through effort, but through relaxation, through acceptance. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you wanted to be healthy. Truly, vibrantly healthy. Most people would focus on the sickness. They'd monitor every symptom, every ache, every sign that something might be wrong. They'd tell their friends about their ailments. They'd research their condition obsessively. And in doing so, they'd be living in the state of sickness. But what would a healthy person do? A healthy person doesn't think about health constantly. They simply assume it. They move through their day with vitality. They make plans for the future. They don't question whether their body will support them. They know it will. That's the difference. That's living in the end. Now, I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, but Joseph, if I assume my wish is fulfilled, won't I stop taking action? Won't I just sit around waiting for things to happen? This is a profound misunderstanding. When you truly assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, action becomes natural. You don't force it. You don't strain. But you find yourself moving in harmony with your assumption. The person who assumes wealth doesn't worry about money, but they also don't sabotage opportunities when they appear. The person who assumes love doesn't desperately chase it, but they're open and receptive when connection presents itself. You see, assumption doesn't replace action, it transforms it. Your actions become inspired rather than desperate. They flow from confidence rather than fear, and that makes all the difference. So tonight, as you prepare for sleep, I want you to think about the state you're occupying. Are you living in the problem or the solution? Are you dwelling in lack or fulfillment? Your imagination is the gateway. Your feeling is the key. And your assumption, your persistent assumption, is what makes it real. Let me give you something you can apply starting today, starting this very hour. Choose one thing, just one. Maybe it's confidence in your career. Maybe it's health. Maybe it's a harmonious relationship or financial freedom. Don't scatter your attention across 10 different desires. Focus on one. Now, close your eyes and construct a scene that would naturally occur times after times that desire is fulfilled. Not the desire itself, but what comes after. If you want financial abundance, don't visualize money. Visualize yourself casually paying for something expensive without a second thought. Feel the ease, the comfort, the security. If you want a loving relationship, don't visualize meeting someone. Visualize yourself waking up next to them, feeling loved, feeling at peace, feeling safe. If you want a healed body, don't visualize the healing process. Visualize yourself doing something you couldn't do before: running, dancing, playing with your children without pain, without limitation. Make the scene brief. Make it simple. Make it sensory. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? And then this is the most important part, repeat that scene every night before you fall asleep. Not as a wish, not as a hope, but as a memory, as something that has already happened. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue, it doesn't question, it accepts what you repetitively impress upon it with feeling. And once it accepts it, it moves heaven and earth to make it so. You don't need to know how, you don't need to figure out the steps, you don't need to force anything. You simply need to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact. This isn't magic, this isn't wishful thinking, this is law. The law of assumption, the law of consciousness, the law that governs every single manifestation in your life whether you're aware of it or not. So become aware, become deliberate, become the conscious creator you were always meant to be. Your subconscious mind is waiting for you. It's been waiting your entire life. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't criticize you. It simply says, give me the blueprint and I will build it for you. And here's the beautiful part, it never stops working. While you sleep, while you eat, while you go about your daily activities, your subconscious is working tirelessly to bring into reality whatever you've impressed upon it. This is why the last thoughts you think before sleep are so powerful. This is why morning affirmations set the tone for your entire day. This is why consistent mental diet matters more than occasional positive thinking. You see, most people try to change their lives through willpower alone. They grit their teeth and force themselves to do things they don't want to do. And yes, sometimes that works temporarily, but it's exhausting. It's like swimming upstream against a powerful current. But when you impress a new idea upon your subconscious mind, when you truly convince that deeper part of yourself, everything changes. Now you're swimming with the current. Now the universe itself seems to conspire in your favor. Opportunities appear. The right people show up. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. This isn't magic. This isn't wishful thinking. This is scientific mental law in operation. I've seen it happen thousands of times. The person who couldn't find love suddenly meets their ideal partner. The struggling business owner suddenly experiences breakthrough after breakthrough. The sick person who was told there was no hope suddenly experiences a complete recovery. What changed? Not the external world. The external world simply rearranged itself to match the internal conviction. So I ask you again, what are you impressing upon your subconscious mind right now in this moment? What mental seeds are you planting? Because whatever they are, you will reap the harvest. Choose wisely, choose deliberately, choose with faith and conviction. Your future is being created right now in this present moment by the thoughts you're thinking and the feelings you're feeling. Make them count.